maybe let's wait for a few minutes for the other participants and yun. Yeah. Okay, it's nice to see everyone over here. If we could be closer for a bit, if that's okay, if everyone's comfortable, if we can move a bit closer, that would be fine to facilitate the discussions better. We'll start in a few minutes.
كده سهل.
Hello.
We'll be starting in a minute. Okay, so I think we have a good crowd right now. So good afternoon, everyone. First off, a few introductions are in order. My name is Jeff. I'll be your moderator for this afternoon session entitled From Cradle to Cradle, just transition from production, supply chains to end-of-life management, and for a zero-waste future and circular economy. We have a few of our partners for this session that will be talking a lot about how the circular economy and the push for just transition has affected the informal sector in more ways than one. Um, Circular economy is a concept we have grown very familiar with. Defined by the UN. It is a sustainable system where resources are used differently and waste is reduced through a continuous cycle of reuse and regeneration. On the macro scale, of course, the circularity aims to keep the rate of resource extraction below the rate of resource consumption, which runs in contrast to the current status quo of linear economic models that in many ways fuels the triple planetary crisis. In this sense, one can say that this circular economy is the model economic system for a just transition away from current planet destructive systems. But I guess the question here for the session is, what does this circular economy framework entail on the micro level? More specifically, what is the impact of this drive for just transition in sectors that have been marginalized already in current systems? So today we will be hearing from voices and testimonies from these different sectors. We have Krishna from India, who will speak about his journey from being a waste picker to an entrepreneur advocating for just systems for waste pickers. We have Joanna from the Philippines, who will be elaborating on her experiences handling e-waste, specifically EV batteries. We have Suntaree, who will be bringing to the fore the issues and challenges of home-based workers, as well as their demands, and Mayang, who will finally talk about the risks associated with circular economy projects and how international financial institutions are responding to this. The format will be as such. There will be 10 minutes per speaker, and we will be opening the plenary for questions later once all of the speakers have given their presentations. I also want to remind everyone that there is a simultaneous online live stream going on, and this is also open for questions from our online participants. We do have back-end support for this who will be facilitating as well the questions from the online platform. Right. So yes. So without further ado, may I introduce you to Krishna from India.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಕೃಷ್ಣ. ನಾನು ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಂದ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ಯೂನಿಯನ್ ಹೆಸರು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ತ್ಯಾಜ್ಯ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷಾ ಸಂಘಟನೆ, ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ TSS. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ವೈಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ಯೂನಿಯನ್ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಲಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಟರ್ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇದೆ. ನಾನು ಇಂಟರ್ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಇರೋ ಎಲ್ಲ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕರ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಅವ್ರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇವಾಗ ನನ್ನ ಲೈಫ್ ಸ್ಟೈಲ್ ನೀವು ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, ನಾನು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ವಯಸ್ಸಿಂದಾನೇ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಕೆಲಸನೇ ನಾನು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. 10-12 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದಾನೇ ರೋಡ್ ಇರೋ ವೇಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪಿಕ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನನ್ನ ಲೈಫನ್ನು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಕಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಮಾರು ಕಷ್ಟನೂ ಅನಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮೆತ್ತಿಗೆ ಅದರಿಂದ ಬೇರೆ ಕೆಲಸನ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತು ಈ ವರ್ಕ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ರೀತಿಗೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ನಾವು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಡ್ರೈವರ್ಸ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ 2011ನಲ್ಲಿ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ MOU ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇನ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕರ್ ಇನ್ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅದು ಒಂದು ನಾವು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಆ ಡ್ರೈವರ್ಸ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಆಪರೇಟರ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾನು ರನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ವಾರ್ಡ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು 17ರಿಂದ 20,000 ಮನೆಯಿಂದ ಡ್ರೈವರ್ಸ್ನ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸೆಗ್ರಿಗೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ರೀಸೈಕ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದು ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಯಾವ ಥರ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ, ನಾವು ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಬರೀ ಹೈ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಲೋ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಮಲ್ಟಿಲೇಯರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಅಷ್ಟೂ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸೆಗ್ರಿಗೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದು ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕೋ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರು ಬೇರೆ ಥರ ನಾವು ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ 2016ನಲ್ಲಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಒಂದು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾನಿಟರ್ ಆ್ಯಪ್. ಅದು ನಾನೇ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಅದು ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕೋ ಫೌಂಡರ್ ನಾನು ಆ ಆ್ಯಪ್ಗೆ. ಅದು ಹೆಸರು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಸಮಾರಿಟನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ್ಯಪ್ ಹೆಸರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ 2018-19 ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಆದರೆ ದ ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟೈಲ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ದ ಮೋರ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ದ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್. ಎಲ್ಲ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಸೆಗ್ರಿಗೇಷನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ರೀಸೈಕ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ನಾಲೆಜ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂದ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರ್ ಪ್ರತಿ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ಗೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಜನರೇಷನ್ ಯಾರಿದಾರೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ನಾವು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಮಕ್ಕಳುಗಳಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ಥರ ಸೆಗ್ರಿಗೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಹೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಂಗ್ ತಡಿಸೋದು, ಅದು ಥರ ಎಜುಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದನ್ನು ದಾಟಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಆರ್ಮಿ ಏನಿದೆಯೋ ಅವರು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವರು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಈ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇವಾಗ ನೋಡಿ, ನನ್ನ ಜರ್ನಿ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ತುಂಬಾ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್ ಜರ್ನಿ. ಇಷ್ಟು ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟು ನಾವು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ನ ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ಸೇವ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ. ಇವಾಗ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳುವಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ವಾವ್ ಸೂಪರ್, ಇದು ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಜಾಬ್, ಇದು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ. ಆದ್ರೆ ರಿಯಾಲಿಟಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರ್ ಲೈಫು ಉನ್ನ ಕೆಳಗಡೆನೆ ಇದೆ. ಅದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸೋಗವಾದ ವಿಷಯ ನಮ್ಗೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟರೆ ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮ ಲೈಫ್ ಹಂಗೆ ಇದೆ. ಲೈವ್ಲಿಹುಡ್ ಅದು ವೆರಿ ಫೋರ್. ಸರಿ, ಈ ತರ ಇರುವಾಗ ಬರೋ ಒಂದು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್, ಕಾನೂನು ಏನನ್ನು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯೋ, EPR, ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಟಿ, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಬರುವಾಗ ನಮಗೂ ಒಂದು ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಖುಷಿ ಆಯ್ತು. ರೈಟ್, ನಮ್ಮ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಫಲ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿರುವಾಗ, ಬಟ್ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ನಾವು, ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ನಾವು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ EPR, ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್, ಅப்புறம் ಗ್ಲೋಬಲ್ ಟಿ ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್, ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿನೂ ನಾವು ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅದು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ತುಂಬಾ ಬೇಜಾರಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ವಿಷಯ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವೇನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಆ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದಿರೋ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರ್ ಹೆಸರುನ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀರ ಅಂತ. ಇವಾಗ ನೋಡಿ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಲ್ವಾ ಯಾವ ತರ ಅಂತ. ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ಗೆ ಯಾರು ಕಾರಣ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೈ ಎತ್ತೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಅಷ್ಟು ಜನನು ಕಾರಣ ಅಂತ. ಅದೇ ತಪ್ಪು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡೋರು ನಾವಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋರು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಆ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಕೂಡ ಸೇರಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ಇದೇ ತರ ತಪ್ಪು ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮ ಪಾಲಿಸಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. EPR, ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕಷ್ಟಪಡೋರು ನಾವು, ಬಟ್ ನಮ್ದು ಎಲ್ಲಿನೂ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವೇನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ, ನೀವು ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಸ್ಟೇಕ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡರ್ನ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬನ್ನಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಆ ಸ್ಟೇಕ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡರ್ನ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ತಗೊಂಡು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇದು ಪ್ಯಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ನ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಮಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರ್ನ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರ ಲೈಫ್ ಹೆಂಗನ್ನ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಜರ್ನಿ ಮಾಡೋದಂತ ನೀವು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇವಾಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದಿವಸನಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಗ್ಲೋಬಲ್ ಮಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಟಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಒಳ್ಳೇದೇ, ಅದು ಬರಬೇಕು, ಆ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಪೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್, ನಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಬರಕ್ ಮುಂಚೆಂದನೇ ಸುಮಾರು ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ, ಇವಾಗ ನಾನು 3rd ಜನರೇಷನ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರ್. ನಾವು ಇಷ್ಟು ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿ ಈ ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಇಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಒಂದೇ ಸಲ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಟಿ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರ್ನ ತೆಗಿಬಾರ್ದು. ಅದು ಏನು ನೀವು ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಬರಿತೀರೋ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ಬೇಕು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರ್ದು ಹೆಸರು ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ರೋಲ್. ನಾವು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೇನೆ ನೀವು ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತೀರೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲವೂ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಇನ್ಪುಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನೀವು ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದ್ರು ಸರಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ನಾವು ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಜಾಬ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಕೂಡ ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ನಾವು ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಸೋಲಾರ್ ಫ್ಯಾನಲ್ ಏನೇ ಒಂದು ಹೊಸ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಕೂಡ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ನಾವು ತೊಡಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದು ಅಷ್ಟು ಆದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಿಜವಾದ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗೋದು. ನಮ್ಮ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ನ್ಯಾಯ ಸಿಗಬೇಕು. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋರು ಮತ್ತೆ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಇವರು ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಾವಿರೋದು ಗೊತ್ತೇ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಪುಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ನಾವು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು, ನೀವು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ನಿಮ್ ಜೊತೆ ಬರ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವು ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಏನೇ ಒಂದು ನೀವು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಬರುವಾಗ, ಕಾನೂನು ಬರುವಾಗ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಬರೆಯುವಾಗ ನಿಜವಾದ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಯಾರು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಕಷ್ಟ ಏನಂತ ನೀವು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಇರೋರು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್. ಆ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ನ ನೀವು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಮುಂದೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಅದನ್ನೇ ನಾನು ಪುಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಇದು ಬೇಕು ಅದು ಬೇಕಂತ ನಾವು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಏನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ EPR ನಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ, ಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಟಿ ನಲ್ಲಿ. ನಮಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಆಚೆ ಕಡೆ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇವ್ರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಫ್ಲೈವರ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು ನಾವು ಕೆಳಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಏನೇನ್ ಬೇಕೋ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇವಾಗ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ ಕಂಪನಿಗೆ ಏನ್ ಬೇಕೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಬೇಕು, ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್. ಅದು ನಮ್ಮ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಆ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಸಿಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ EPRಗೆ ಅದು ಎಷ್ಟು ರೀಸೈಕ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಅದು ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಳಗಡೆಯಿಂದಾನೆ ತೆಗೆದು ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇವ್ರು 2 ಜನಗೂ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಕೊಡೋರು ನಾವು, ಆದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಯುಕಲ್ ಆಗಿ ನೀವು ಏನು ಒಂದು ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋ ಆ ರೌಂಡ್ ಟೇಬಲ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೂ ಯುಕಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಚೇರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಮುಂದೆ ಎತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಯಾರೆಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಕಾಪಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರೋ ಅವ್ರಷ್ಟು ಜನನು ಕೇಳೋದು ನಾವಿಷ್ಟೇ, ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನೀವು ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ನ ಕಾಪಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಕಾಪಾಡೋರು ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್. ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಆಸೆ ಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಈ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್.
Thank you very much, Krishna. So as we see, there is still an urgent need, right, to be able to recognize these rights, but also to recognize the essential place of waste pickers, especially in very systematized policies such as EPR, where in the global south there is still a lot to be improved, right? So just a reminder for everyone that there are translation services for this. You may access them in the screen in front of you. So for now, we can move on to Joanna Amican, who will be talking about their experiences of waste pickers in Manila on e-waste, specifically EV batteries. Joanna?
Yes, good afternoon to everybody. I'm Joanna Diamican, Officer of Philippines National Waste Worker Alliance. I am a secretary and one of the member of Eco-Waste Coalition. I would like to tell my story in my own language, which is Filipino. Sa paggawa po ng e-bike or when we produce e-bike, especially in the Philippines, that's a very large count of e-bike in our country. Why? Because e-bike is more cheaper, practical. When you heard cheaper and practical, tinatangkilik namin to kasi ito lang yung kaya naming bilhin. Ito lang yung kaya naming abutin. Without knowing the black propaganda of that e-bike, who will be benefit of that? Yes, kami ba? Mabe-benefit ba kami ng e-bike? Or yung nagpo-produce or the producer? There's so many marketing the e-bike that it's beautiful, more cheaper, convenient, but unfortunately, lahat po yun puro kasinungalingan. Kapag bumili ka ng e-bike, sinasabi nila na naglo-long last up to 10 years. But sorry to tell you guys, it's only 1 year. So, sino yung kumita doon? Si manufacturer. Yes. The e-bike had a lead battery, lead acid battery. Actually, ito yung nagpapatakbo sa kanya, yung baterya na to. Na kung saan, meron tong lead acid battery. Once na masira na si e-bike, ano na, wala na. Kapag nasira siya, sa tapunan na siya napupunta. So kaming mga e-waste worker, binibili namin siya. Mostly yung mga customer namin nagagalit kasi lagi nilang sinasabi ang mahal ng bili namin dito. Pero bibili nyo lang siya ng ganito. Pero pag tinignan mo yung value nung kalakal or nung e-bike, napakababa niya lang. Actually, kapag binili namin si e-bike, yung casing niya, tapo na yon, waste na yon kasi may halo siyang goma. Kapag binili namin yung katawan na BI, mura lang mabibili. Pero yung baterya, kapag sira na siya, tapo na siya talaga. So kapag tinapon siya, saan siya mapupunta? Hindi naman siya tinuturo sa amin kung paano siya ma-dispose properly. No one tell us how to dispose it, dismantle it. Just dinadala na lang namin sila sa basurahan kasi wala na siyang pakinabang kapag dinala namin siya sa junk shop. Kwento ko lang, syempre kaming mga ngalakal dahil wala kaming sapat na kaalaman. Meron kaming isang member na namatay dahil sa e-bike battery. Nung tinusok niya yung lagayan ng kuryente, nag-spark siya. So, nakuryente yung member namin. Nung makuryente siya, nag-crack yung balat niya sa dulo ng daliri niya. Akala niya okay lang yun. So, anong ginagawa niya? Nangangati hanggang sa nangati siya. Nagkaroon siya ng rashes. Ang ginagawa niya, may langis kasi yung e-bike. Yun yung lead acid. Na akala niya, kapag nilagay niya sa balat niya, nakakatulong kasi nawawala yung kate. Pero namamaga siya ng namamaga hanggang mamatay siya. So saan kami pupunta? Hindi namin alam kung kanino. Dahil wala namang nag-o-offer sa amin eh. No one's offer us a help. No one hear us. It's sad to say. Many productor produce and manufacture those things without telling us what is the harmful cause it in us. Even we are not knowing everything. We just work hard to bring bread to our house. So you know what? That man left her child. Nobody can take care of him at his young age. And hindi namin alam kung kanino kami hingi ng tulong kasi yung binili namin produkto, wala namang mananagot kung di kami lang. Sir, ma'am, siguro po masasabi ko lang, sana po kapag gagawa kayo ng implementation, when you made implementation, rules, better to stand with us, hear our voice. Not hearing our voice, make us ingredients to that implementation because we know everything. When you say waste, we are on that cycle. We work on that cycle. So we need to be ingredients in the implementation that you made, that the government implemented to the country. Because like this, Hindi namin alam kung kanino kami pwedeng lumapit. Alam namin na marami siyang hazard waste, chemical waste, pero ito lang po kasi yung alam namin eh. Karamihan po sa amin hindi nakapag-aral. Humingi po kami ng tulong sa lahat. Sana bigyan niyo po kami ng seguridad sa aming hanap buhay. Turuan niyo po kami, i-training niyo po kami. At higit sa lahat, magmalasakit po sa tulad naming mga waste worker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as we see, these experiences are pretty much multiplied across the global South. Despite the difference in waste and difference in waste streams, there are similarities that we can see with the struggles of the informal economy in trying to really accelerate this transition towards a decarbonized future. Now, for the next speaker, we will be hearing from Homenet International, from Suntaree. Take it away.
Thank you so much for give me a chance to share about home workers. The theme that I would like to share with you is home worker in global supply chain. Next slide, please. The first PowerPoint is about our organization. I would like to go fast. HomeNet International is a network of home-based workers in the global area. And we have can say that we represent more than 1.3 million members. Next slide, please. When we said home-based worker, we mean two types of workers that work at home. First is self-employed workers. Self-employed are, sometimes we call them own account worker who design, produce, and marketing their product to the local and global market. Another group of home-based worker is home workers. Home worker is the worker who are in the subcontractor system. They bring the work from individual firm and traders or even organization, both directly or indirectly. And many times it's through intermediaries. Both of them work at home. Next slide, please. What is the contribution of home-based worker? Significant role in local and national global economy. We also prevent household from extreme poverty, support children education, provide unpaid care service within the family. And of course, we provide entry point to the world of workforce for many women workers. But when we talking about challenge, first one is we still invisible and unrecognized by government, employer, and society. So many times that we don't be count as worker, but people just thinking that the group of women that have free time and produce some good for the free time only. We work in poor condition with machine and hazardous material within homes, encounter unfair wage and irregular work. Balancing of work and care responsibilities still be our challenges. Lack of protection under labor laws and very limited or no social protection access. No right to organize the union or representative for bargaining. Next slide, please. When you go to the store and buy many goods like clothes, bag. That is the things that home-based worker produce it. That is that kind of supply chain we are in. Next slide, please. In global supply chain, there are subcontract by global brand or organization, either directly or indirectly, often through intermediary, like I told you before. Home workers receive work order with instruction, provide it with raw material, and based on the piece product. Our wages is a piece rate. They do not have direct access to the market and rarely know who are the primary employer. Don't know. Many home workers, they even don't know for which brand that they are producing. And they don't know where the product are sold. And it's final, what is the price? What do home workers produce? We produce the garment, textile, home finishing, fashion accessory, leather, toy, goods, even food and cigarette. Can say that almost everything are a part of home worker production. Next slide, please. I will go to the important point. The compensation is still the very important point of home-based worker in global supply chain, because like I told you before, home workers are paid per piece and earn lower than their minimum wage. And many times the frequency of earning fall below, especially after COVID-19. The wages fall below because we are not protected by the labor law of minimum wage. Regular working hours, and also many of home workers work more than 8 hours a day, and sometimes more than 6 days a week as well. Home workers have to take responsibility of some costs like equipment, personal prevention tool, and also the other costs like electricity, transport, water supply chain. That is a responsibility of home workers. Next slide, please. When we talking about what we would like to call or merge, first is I think the important point, the focus point is recognition of worker, recognition that we are workers in the supply chain, and how the piece rate will match to the living wage, at least minimum wage. We urge for complaints mechanism as well, because if we out of right now we out of the labor protection law, it means that complaint mechanism, any complaint mechanism is not provided for us. And we urge for the grievance mechanism. For the policy, we call the government to, in fact, we would like the government to ratify ILO standard, especially C177 that mention about home workers, how to protect home workers. But if not ratification, we would like to call the government to like improve the national law in line with the ILO standard. And we call for the employer and the brand as well to support and also social protection for workers through all supply chain. Next slide, please. That is all. I would like to just the last sentence that I would like to say. When we as home-based worker, call for the fair transition, we don't mean that to ask to move all of us to the formal economy sector because it's impossible. But the things that we call for is how to expand all the labor protection, all the social security to cover all informal workers. Because of that, it means we can enjoy the worker rights. And because we are one who contribute to the economy, to the society, so it's why we call for just transition for informal workers and include home-based workers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Suntaree. So I think it's pretty clear right now that from all of the experiences given, a radical system shift is kind of required in trying to address how to not only integrate informal economy actors, but also make them part and a cog of the new system that we want to set up. And one of those systems that probably need a bit of reflection is also redress and grievance mechanisms that are embedded in international financial institutions. And with that, I will be passing the floor to Mayang for her presentation.
Thank you, Jeff. It is my privilege to be part of a panel of informal workers. I am from Gaia, Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, Asia Pacific. A bit of introduction. We are a global network of grassroots and national organizations from 92 countries around the world who are working together on waste and environmental justice. We are strongly rooted in their communities and countries. We are working for decades fighting pollution from waste and leading with zero waste solutions. In the past few years, we have been watching financial flows and monitoring projects in IFIs. And we have been seeing a lot of circular economy programs that IFIs have been discussing, on which programs have opened, on which studies have been published around it. So in 2020 alone, around $13 trillion was spent by governments, public financing for circular economy versus 500 billion to 600 billion by the corporate sector. Meaning we are leveraging a lot through, and most of these are through international financial institutions for circular economy, using public money to invite private sector to be part of the shift that we wanted. In past 10 years, more than 450 circular economy targeted policies and legislation and 54 national roadmap or strategies have been introduced. We are not sure if just transition have been addressed, many of which that we are following did not as manifested by our informal workers. Nearly all IFIs commit to circular economy and just transition with matching portfolios and financial instrument. We have blue loans, circular economy bonds, and other circular economy programs across IFIs. For plastic circularity alone, there was a conference 3 days ago, which we were also part. 82% of investments are channeled to downstream solutions, meaning at the waste disposal side, which means recovery through technologies like waste-to-energy incineration, plastic recycling, which are branded as innovations and technologies that we need for circularity. Recovery and recycling, IFIs leverage their financial power to mobilize private sector, shape policies through technical assistance and policy lending, and they will be crucial actors in the circular economy. How are IFIs addressing the informal economy as we shift to circular economy? This is not in a way saying that this is all about the informal economy. I will be focusing on the informal waste sector, which we have been monitoring in the past few years. What we are learning from IFI circular economy projects is that, as mentioned by most of my co-panelists here, is that they are invisible in many country diagnosis, in sector diagnosis when projects are prepared. For example, waste to energy or landfill modernization, which are important for bringing back the waste into the economy for reutilization and making them productive instead of extracting more and more. They are not part of those diagnoses. And what this means is that the risks and the harms that are posed to them are not addressed by these projects. Second, environmental and social policies of IFIs do not recognize and protect informal workers despite years of ILO recognition and national legislations on the rights of informal waste or informal workers in general. There are already green jobs legislations. For example, in the Philippines, we have Green Jobs Act. There's a just transition recommendation of ILO and many other policies in place for this recognition, but none of the environmental and social safeguards address them. They are addressed in different forms. For example, and I will demonstrate that in the next slides, could be displaced actors in landfill when we close them, could be displaced economic sector, but no clear compensation schemes for them. It is like considering them as collateral damage to the shift and not addressing them programmatically to progress alongside businesses who want to shift from greener economic activities. And so because there's no recognition in environmental and social policies, grievance mechanisms of IFIs cannot address their concerns, or staff are not really trained on them. Project level grievance mechanisms are not trained to accept grievances down in the supply chain. And in the rare times that informal waste workers are visible, their situation and the harms of CE projects or circular economy projects are grossly misunderstood. And I will demonstrate that later. So what's the kinds of projects, circular economy projects that have harmed or harming informal waste workers? For example, one is a privatization of waste infrastructure. As we move towards modernization we choose efficiency, there is a lot of projects on modernizing landfills and quite welcoming in some parts, but these are harmful for waste workers, informal waste workers that have relied on this, on the city's waste for livelihood. These is a symptom of poverty, of the lack of infrastructure, of waste investments in developing countries. And now that as we move to circular economy, we displace them without giving them access to the city's waste and give the rights to private companies. Once this is done, as you can see, there are banners And sometimes they are militarized. They are fenced with barbed wires. They are displaced from the sites. And most private corporations close down these sites in the claim of hazard. But what we are hearing from waste speakers that over food and hazard, we are welcome. We want livelihood. We will choose livelihood over our safety, over things. So what are waste speakers saying? We want just transition. We want livelihoods. When we close down landfills, we want access to them, or you can give us alternative livelihoods. And there are models, working models that address this. Second, investments in resource burning options. These are waste to energy projects, meaning plants that burn in tons every day, recyclable resources, instead of what was once picked by waste pickers and brought to junk shops, and as a source of livelihood for many informal workers, brought to remanufacturing centers and recycling centers. Those whole chain of informal workers have been deprived of jobs because IFIs prefer this easy material resources. When we say resources, are material waste that should be resources in the first place, and now burned to waste to energy incinerations, refuse-derived fuels, pyrolysis, and those techno-fixes to circular economy, which we see now. And we see World Bank, ADB, JICA supporting this in Philippines, Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Maldives, etc. This picture is a picture of waste workers opposing that project in the Philippines. The third is reliance on private sector mobilization, which happens in all programs. When we have climate change or any other development objective, the usual shift, the usual mantra is we need private sector, and we need them. But there's a clear shift. There's a clear, we ignore the historical role of businesses, that they are polluters. There are historical conflicts between social and environmental objectives, but now we are bringing them into a shift that we need, from circular economy as partners to polluters. And this is negating the polluters pay principle. And our panelist here from India is saying in extended producer responsibility policies, where producers are supposed to pay for the collection of municipalities, they are now incentivized, or waste pickers are neglected. So the traditional and historical players in circular economy are being ostracized in policies like extended producer responsibilities. Second, there are no project level grievance mechanisms in place in IFI projects in CEs, meaning how can we expect informal workers to email IFI project officers? We do this. We NGOs do this, and we're not even sometimes we don't even get the response. How could informal workers in eco zones, ununionized, unprotected, unorganized, can approach grievance mechanisms in some city where the IFI offices are in place? In cases where there are integrated, or informal workers or waste workers are integrated, just transition plans are voluntary, optional for corporations. And one of the examples is the Indorama Ventures project, where they collect this is a $400 million loan from IFC and ADB for recycling PET projects, or the plastic bottle that we drink from. And it is operating in India, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand. When we see the targets, there's nothing about engaging with waste pickers. There's only about The waste pickers, the lack of integration, but they also have hazardous chemicals in their operation. The fourth is the craze about digitalization, AI, that is in place. Always that becomes the craze around waste collection. Now, there are different versions of digitalization of waste collection. Could be your app or some other digitalization, but sometimes this intrudes over traditional routes or steals the waste collection because they directly engage with households. Now, private companies directly gets the waste from households and now displacing informal waste sectors. So what we are seeing is that when this digitalization or innovations are in place, we make sure that informal workers, especially waste workers, are considered in the design. What we ask from IFIs is to recognize and protect the rights of informal workers across its policies to guide its borrower clients on the need to address social objectives in circular economy. And it should be across in its operational strategies, sectoral, meaning energy, waste sector, safeguards policies, and accountability mechanisms, including at the project levels. Second, design project tools, including assessment and diagnostic of factors, characteristic causes, and circumstances of informality in the national context to inform the design and implementation of laws and regulations, policies, and other measures aiming to facilitate the transition to the formal economy. And third, require just transition plans that respect informal workers to meaningful participation and ensuring opportunities for income, security, livelihood, and entrepreneurship. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayang. So as we see, there have been a lot of convergences with the experiences from these different countries on this difficulty to transition, but at the same time, hope, right? In terms of the ways forward and policy recommendations that our governments and also civil society actors can actually propose to facilitate this transition and to make it more just. So we have 10 minutes to field questions from the audience, both offline and online. So if you could indicate your name and your organization, I will be the one that will be calling out those who have questions. So if you could just raise your hand and I can address you. Okay, over there.
Thank you very much for very insightful presentations from the panelists. And my name is Prim, registered around Wongkra. I am representing children and youth from this region. And one of the questions is that I heard like different perspectives from the guest speaker, from being home worker, and then from all the circular economy and how making a just transition can impact the lives of the community that is doing it. I have one very interesting idea on the technology aspects, that if you incorporate technology in, and it's kind of this impacting the people who are already picking up waste, and what kind of advice or recommendations would you have to digitalizations or to be more inclusive of people who are already doing the workplace, and also accelerating the waste picker management system as also protecting their human rights? Thank you.
Right. So if anyone from our esteemed panel would want to answer. Yeah, Mayang. Okay, Krishna.
எஸ் இப்போ நான் முதல்ல சொன்ன மாதிரி சார், தேர்ட் ஜென்ரேஷனாக வேஸ்ட்டில் வேலை செஞ்சுனுங்கிற கூட்டம் நாங்கள் இருக்கிற போது இதில் எங்களது இம்ப்ரூவ்மெண்ட் இல்லை, ஆனால் இதில் நாலேஜ் இருக்குது. இப்போ நான் முதல்ல சொன்ன மாதிரி நானே ஒரு ஆப் டெவலப் பண்ணியிருக்கிறேன். அப்போ நீங்கள் யோசனை பண்ணணும், வேஸ்ட் பிக்கரு எந்த லெவலுக்கு புரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டு இருக்கிறான் இங்கே நடக்கிற சுச்சுவேஷன் எல்லாமே. ஆனால் அந்த வாய்ப்பு கிடைக்காதனால தான் எங்கள்கிட்ட இருக்கிற ஐடியா எல்லாமே எங்களோட போயிடுது. ஆனால் நிறைய நாலேஜ் வச்சுன்னு இருக்கிறோம், எல்லா வேலையிலையும் வேலை செய்யறதுக்கு ரெடியாக இருக்கிறோம். பட் அந்த வாய்ப்பு இல்லாதனால தான் எங்களோட சண்டை. அதனால தான் நாங்கள் என்ன சொல்கிறோம், நீங்கள் என்ன சிஸ்டம் எடுத்துன்னு வந்தால் கூட அது கூட வேலை செய்யறதுக்கு நாங்கள் ரெடியாக இருக்கிறோம். அதுக்கான கொஞ்சம் டைமு, அதுக்கான கொஞ்சம் ட்ரைனிங்கு அது கிடைச்சா போதும். நீங்கள் எதிர்பார்க்கறதோட ஜாஸ்தியாகவே நம்ம செஞ்சு கொடுப்போம். அது டெக்னாலஜியாக இருக்கட்டும், இல்லைன்னா வேறு எந்த சிஸ்டமாக இருந்தால் கூட சரி. ஏன்னா நாலேஜ் நிறைய இருக்குது, நிறைய வருஷம் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் இருக்குது இந்த வேலையில். சேர்த்துக்கணும் தான் சொல்கிறோம் மறுபடியும் நாங்கள்.
Okay, and I think there's also some interest from some of the panelists to answer that. Joanna?
Yes, as in our country, there are several NGO who also help us to upgrade our knowledge, who teach us the hazardous is not good. They teach us how to dismantling properly. For example, eco waste. They gave us some trainings so that we can go with that upgraded or what you call development. And for now, Gaia and Mother Earth giving us voice to speak and to hear what we want to say, and some of them giving us seminars and knowledge. Knowledge is more important, especially on us here, that starting in the very vulnerable life cycle. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm very curious though about how IFIs can actually integrate that question on using digitalization aspects of this transition to like protect waste worker human rights. Are there examples in the current work that Gaia has on IFIs that could potentially point to this?
Well, they have to integrate the rights of informal workers first, so that their borrower clients will follow. That's the key. But we have seen other startup innovators that have good examples of integrating waste pickers when they consult with them, understanding how they could be part of the collection, or some apps also put in fair pricing, what's the current market price of waste, and that gives transparency to all players without having for them to negotiate with middlemen or aggregators that always play around prices. So those are good examples, but it only happens when they meaningfully have waste workers and informal waste pickers join in the project design.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the audience, both from online and here? We have about 7 minutes left. So if you have burning questions, yes.
Hello, I'm Carlo from the International Accountability Project. I would like to ask question regarding the presentation made by Mayang. She mentioned about the project level mechanism. So right now, I think multilateral development banks accountability mechanisms provide a dispute resolution function that could like potentially trigger discussion at a project level. However, this function is a bit challenging right now, because many governments and corporations do not want to engage in this function. So my question is there any specific recommendation from Gaia and from other organizations that waste pickers could use to access remedy and file complaints? Yeah.
Now it's difficult because at the project level, at the start of the project diagnosis, for example, a waste to energy project or a landfill project, waste pickers are never counted in the project diagnosis, which means we never know the baseline of the number of waste pickers who are displaced in the landfills or who are involved in collection of waste before the waste to energy project has been there. So we know this through our membership. We know this because they have established the systems, community systems of waste collection previously, and then we consult with them. But we know in our experience that the policies are not inclined with those who are indirectly affected by the project. Some safeguards policies usually require directly affected by the project. So if you're down the supply chain, you're not usually counted. And if you are, they usually use the country standards, which are sometimes lower. For example, in one landfill project, there was a child laborer in the landfill, and they didn't pay for compensation for the child because he's a child. And this merely exploits the lack of protection in that country for delivering on safeguards. And in our studies, in our groups, we know that the kinds of affected communities, the success in triggering accountability mechanisms or project level mechanisms depend on the support of NGOs, because the policies are very complex, requires technical understanding of the policies, and these safeguards are never translated to the communities. They don't have these mics with translation. The safeguards policies are not translated in the way that communities understand it. The space of consultations is not safe. For example, one landfill mechanism is operated by a military guy, and that already affects the dynamics between the waste workers, the waste pickers that are affected in the landfill site operated by military. And so there are many issues around it that the current policies do not cater or consider.
Suntaree?
Yeah, I would like to share my point of view. I think the most important challenge or the cause of all issue that informal worker found is about recognition. Without recognition as workers, the data or the survey or the way that they count the how to call is the force on the data. The way that they do survey on the labor force, will not record about how many informal workers. And if we have to change on of this, the first thing that we have to call is a recognition. You don't have yes. How the government and the society will count and accept and recognize as a worker. That is the first point that we need to urge or need to call for.
Okay, thank you for that. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this, and it was budding to be a rich discussion. So let me just synthesize everything for every one of us here. So I think it was a good representation of the multifaceted experiences of informal economy actors and waste pickers and waste workers across the different regions that we have seen. And throughout those experiences,
Grade 8, Santi,
sorry about that.
Rito Ishihara.
Okay. So yeah, there have been similarities in these experiences.
Thank you.
We could look at two or three main
Imagine he should be here shortly.
Okay. Yeah, two or three major themes that we have seen to be very similar. One is recognition. There won't be anything happening in regards to accountability mechanisms or justice access for a lot of our waste workers without the prior recognition of their rights and also frankly, their access to these different economic streams that they would want to be a participant of in this just transition. The other common theme that we have seen is that there seems to be an opacity when it comes to information that's being shared that doesn't trickle down to waste workers. And this affects not only the safety in terms of occupational hazards, but also in terms of the dignity of work, which is front and center in this just transition. So what really needs to happen is a systemic shift that will not just be a token inclusion of the waste workers and the informal economy in general, but really partners in this just transition. So with that, we want to thank all of our speakers, Krishna, Suntaree, Joanna, and Mayang, and let us give them a round of applause. If any one of you have further questions, you may reach out to every one of us here in front. And again, this has been Jeff. I was your moderator today, and good afternoon.